Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. We have another interview here today. I have Annie Phillips with us, and she's kind of all over the place these days, but currently she's in Clifton Park, New York, and she's going to be talking to us today about her experience of living with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME. So, hi, Annie.
Hi, I'm
Thank
so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. So as usual, just before we dive in, it's important for you guys to know that neither one of us are, doctors or medical health professionals. We are just sharing our own experience of living with and working to recover from this illness. So nothing we share should be considered medical advice. Okay, Annie. So I guess if you could start just by telling us a little bit about your experience with this illness.
Yeah, so I got sick in August 2016. So I was completely healthy, or as healthy as any other normal person, until August 2016. And then I was coming home from the beach with my friend, and I was like, oh, I don't feel very good. And right that night, I just came down with a viral infection. So I'm sure that is what set off my CFS. And I was also under a lot of stress that year and the summer leading up to it. So that's also another factor in what happened. And then, so for the first year, I had so many symptoms. I could go on and on, but the main ones that come to mind are extreme fatigue, obviously, high fever, high liver enzymes, headaches, hot flashes, sore throat, like sores in my mouth, and brain fog. And then there was a bunch of other really weird ones, but those are the ones that kind of stuck with me every day. So for the first year, I was really sick, and I barely even remember it, honestly, because I spent most of it in bed, and just is kind of like the time just disappeared. So, and then the second year, I was kind of able to get out of bed and go on short walks and see my friends, but only for a little bit of time. And then the third year, I was able to go to college, actually, and seem normal and act pretty normal, but still have a lot of fatigue, a lot of like post exertional issues. So I don't like do anything active. And then I still have rashes and headaches, but I've definitely improved a lot since those first 2 years.
Okay, so August 2016. So do you mind my asking how old you were?
Yeah, so it was right after my 18th birthday
Okay.
and right after I graduated high school, also.
So, what has it been like getting this illness at such a young age? I really can't even imagine what it's like to be 18 years old and to be hit with something so intense and so heavy and so difficult. I got sick when I was 30 and it leveled me, and I did not feel at all equipped to deal with it. So, I can't even imagine it at 18. What was that like?
Yeah, so it was very hard to put it lightly. Obviously, at any age, there it's nothing easy and hard to deal with for everyone. But since it happened to me, I kind of think at such a critical time, it made it so much harder. It happened the week before I was supposed to go to college, so I was like all packed up, ready to leave, and so that was a disaster to figure that out.
Oh.
And then also, I just felt a lot of pressure, like about caring about what people think, which I feel like kind of goes away as you get older, and it's already gone away so much for me now. But at that time, I didn't want to let my friends down. Like explaining that I wasn't going to
Mm-hmm.
college was really hard. I was embarrassed. My family, some of my family wasn't very supportive, and so I kind of felt sad about that. And I just wanted people to understand in the worst way. And I think that had a lot to do with my age and just like caring what people older than me thought and what my friends thought. And then also, I think there's certain pressures that come with any age, but at that, when you're 18, or now I'm 21, and even just same now, I feel like everyone is like working and going out to bars and concerts and
Mm-hmm.
going on trips and even going to like yoga class with my
Yeah.
friends I obviously can't do, and that's kind of expected of people my age. So that's, really hard to either push through all these things and deal with the symptoms and deal with the price afterwards, or to say no to my friends. And I don't like either options. And then I think the last thing I'll say on this is that it's been really hard to give up my kind of past personality, I like to put it. I still haven't given it up. I am like very spontaneous, and I grew up loving to ski and hike and travel and, stay up all night and do fun things. So I think like that's how I'm supposed to be during this time of life, and saying no to all those things and giving that up is really difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting because so much of what you say resonates with my experience, but I can also see how it's would be so much more intensified at your age. A lot of us seem to be those people that are really active and really busy that get hit with this, but I know for me, and it seems like a lot of people, the older we get, the more we kind of mellow out a bit. And like you said, I think we still worry what people think, but there's a sort of permission slip we learn to give ourselves when we get older that it's okay and it doesn't matter what people think. Well, I'm very sorry that you've had to go through this at any age, but at your age sounds incredibly tough, impossibly difficult, and really unfair. How did it unfold for you? Because I imagine you started going to some doctors. What happened?
Yeah, so similar to anyone else with this illness, I'm sure I saw so many doctors. At first, I just went to urgent care, I think, because my fever was so high, and we just like kind of wanted to get answers right away. And they did a bunch of tests, and the only one that was wrong was my liver, and it was extremely elevated, like off the charts.
Oh, wow.
So, and the Epstein-Barr and the mono test was actually negative, but that's what they thought was wrong because it can affect your liver. So, like I said, it's kind of a blur that whole first year, but I did go to an immunologist, infectious disease, and a bunch of other doctors like that. And finally, the Epstein-Barr was positive, which, ties into the fact that it was mono at first, just a really bad case of mono. So I never really got any solid answers from any doctors. Some doctors mentioned that, the word chronic fatigue, and that if it goes on for 6 months, like you could have chronic fatigue, but it'll just go away. Like there's nothing you can do about it. And then some doctors implied strongly that it was all in my head and prescribed me antidepressants, which I just knew wasn't the case. So I didn't take them, obviously. I remember one specific doctor stood out in my head, and he was asking me about my diet, which I had already changed at that time, be eating really clean. And he said, "You just need to go up and have a slice of pizza like a normal teenager." And I was like, okay, well, I think we're going to leave now. But so, anyways, in summary, I didn't really get very much from doctors, and I kind of just ended up not going and figuring out on my own. Now I seeing a CFS specialist who's also actually in California, and he had CFS himself, so that's been a lot better to communicate with him, and he believes it and understands it, so that's been really helpful.
Wow. Yeah, it's such a game changer, isn't it? When you find a doctor that actually sort of understands and believes you. Because it's so crazy having this illness that is so confusing and you don't know what's going on and it's so scary and you can't explain it to anyone and you can't even explain it to yourself. And then you go to the
Hmm.
doctors and they tell you infuriating things like have a piece of pizza. Like how invalidating is that, or that it's all in your head or you need antidepressants. And
Yeah.
it seems like thousands or millions of us are having that experience.
Yeah, I think that was the worst part for me because I just wanted someone to give me a label or tell me what was going on. So mainly so that I could tell other people what was going on. But then to go to the doctor and have them say, "Oh, nothing's wrong," then I'm like, what am I supposed to say? Like, obviously something's wrong.
And we all have people to answer to, whether it's our friends or our university or our job. And when you don't have anything to say, and
Yeah.
chronic fatigue syndrome is not the best diagnosis that you want to, not that there's any diagnosis that you want to be telling people, but it just shows, I think, how desperate we are that we're just so excited, some of us, to get this diagnosis of ME or
Hmm.
chronic fatigue syndrome, even though it's really not helpful at all. And especially when doctors tell you things like, oh, just go off and wait for it to go away.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've heard everything from exercise, like just go exercise, or
Yeah.
stress less or sleep more, and it's like that's just not the case. And I
Yeah.
think also when you get the diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome, it's hard to even tell people that because it doesn't even sound like an illness. And there's so much more to it and so many more symptoms than just fatigue. So that's confusing also.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's really unfortunate that we've named this illness after one symptom, and a symptom that doesn't even sound, fatigue isn't even the right word. We need a different word for it. So you mentioned that you're seeing a CFS specialist, which is excellent that you managed to find someone to work with. So what is your approach to recovery right now? What are some of the things that you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm kind of taking his advice and also my own thoughts and other people's advice and mixing it into one. I've always tried like different diets and little things to recover, but since COVID happened, I came home to my parents' house and have been able to focus on all aspects pretty much. So I feel like this is the first time that I'm actually focusing on healing my body. And so the main, well, first of all, your book is pretty much my Bible. Like I took everything in it, took notes on everything, and that's kind of like where it started when I decided to actually focus on healing instead of just like living. I know you mentioned at one point that you were kind of just living through or getting by for many years, and that's kind of what I was doing also. So when I read your book, that was the first time that I decided to, change everything. So right now I'm doing a lot of resting, which is
Mm-hmm.
nice. And I switched my diet. I kind of always cut out gluten and dairy and sugar occasionally, but that's really hard. So I switched my diet to whole food, plant-based, and no sugar, no gluten also because I get rashes from gluten. I know it doesn't bother some people, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work for me. No caffeine, no alcohol. And then through my CFS specialist doctor, we've been doing a lot of work on my gut. So I've been taking probiotics and also eating a lot of probiotic foods and fiber
Mm-hmm.
and greens. And I'd say I follow this diet 99 to 100% of the time, which is
Wow.
a lot different than what I used to do, which is be gluten free. But then if I wanted to eat some Oreos, I would. So that's a big change. Um, and then I've also been like focusing a lot on detox. So like lots of lemon water, have some salt baths, sitting in the sun, fasting, which is something that feels really good to me. Um, and then I also, there's so many things, but I also have read a lot of the medical medium books. I don't know if you know of him, but I'm not sure how much I believe in all of it, but some things make a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been drinking like his detox smoothies and juices and things like that. So overall, I think the main things are that I'm focusing on are my gut, my sleep, my rest, and detox, and anything else that I come up with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because when people ask me what I did to get well, it's such a hard thing to answer. And sometimes people will ask me just in like a DM on Instagram, and I think, oh my goodness, it's going to go on for a week, this answer. I don't know. Because really, I've narrowed it down to about 10 things that I did to recover, which sounds like a lot. But I think a lot of us find with this illness that it's not going to be one thing. Like it's not just a
Yeah.
B12 deficiency, or you don't just need to remove gluten. Like that might be part of it, but there's going to be a bunch of other things. It's a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would get blood tests for this whole time that would say I had a vitamin deficiency. And so then I would take the vitamin, whether that be iron or B12, and nothing would happen. So I feel like it is about taking those supplements, maybe if you have those deficiencies, but also doing everything else all at once, which is kind of
Yeah.
what I've learned and what everyone seems to say that is better.
Yeah. And it's so nice. It's so kind of you to mention my book and that you know, appreciated it and that you got things from it. Of course, that means the world to me because I really put, you know, everything into putting that book out there, trying to make it a good support for people. So thank you for saying that, for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad it's been helpful in some way on your journey. But I also love what you're doing, how you're reading lots of different books and, you know, seeing different doctors and listening to your own intuition and, you know, your own gut, so to speak, because it really seems like everyone has to find a bit of their own path. There's some themes with all of us and perhaps some common things that will help a lot of us. but putting too much faith in one person or one plan or one protocol doesn't seem to get people very far. And it's something I think too about my book. I hope I try to make this clear in it, but I wouldn't want anyone to put sort of all their eggs in that basket. It's absolutely what worked for me, but it's not going to be the 100% plan for everyone. So, but it's just, I think the more resources we have and the more options and things we can choose from, the better off we are.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it was really helpful to read a book about something that lined up so similar with my experience, because there's a lot of like healing chronic illness books or how to fix your gut, but there wasn't something that I had found that was, this is what happened to me and this is how you got better. So I think that was really key.
And I also have, I don't know if you found, because it sounds like you read a lot, and a lot of the stuff that I've read is really overwhelming because it breaks it down into 1,000 symptoms. And even though, yes, we say that there's a lot of changes that we have to make to get better, a lot of the approaches seem to be tackling each symptom individually with this supplement or this protocol or this prescription medication. And it just, I don't know, none of that ever really worked for me. I had to take a more holistic approach that was just more about supporting my body's own ability to heal itself, as opposed to like this for this and that for that.
Yeah, I agree. I spent a lot of time doing like, I'm gluten free because of this, or I'm gonna go on a walk every day because of this reason. And I think kind of just making healing more of my lifestyle and just like what I do instead of setting all these rules has been a game changer. And like, I don't cheat anymore because it's kind of my lifestyle and not just things that I'm trying. If that makes sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. And I get quite a few people asking me, how long did you have to keep this up? And when did you go back to eating normal? Or when did you go back to a normal diet? But this just feels normal now, doesn't it? I'm like, this is my normal diet. I don't know how to go back. And I never would. Just like, oh, yeah. I'm better now. Let's go back to eating McDonald's or, okay.
I know my dad asked me the other day, like when the next time I would eat a burger is. And I was like, honestly, I don't think ever. Like I like veggie burgers just as much. So
yeah, I'm finding the same. I'm definitely finding the same. All right. So you've talked quite a bit about how this illness has impacted your life, what it's been like for you, the things that it's taken from you. And, I don't want to focus on the negative. I always try and keep things positive and uplifting and inspiring, but it also doesn't do anyone any favors if we just, gloss over the ways that this is really hard. So I'm just curious, what has that been like for you? What has it taken from you, do you think? How has it changed your life in ways that really aren't fair?
Yeah, I think it's so important to be positive, but also acknowledge the fact that it's not been easy and it's also not been fun. So, I got sick the month that I turned 18. So my adult life to date has just been dealing with having CFS, and I lost friends and experiences and opportunities that would normally come along for the trajectory that I was on if I didn't get CFS. So that's been really sad and hard to deal with, because I know my life would be completely different if this wasn't the case. But also I think that that's come with some really important lessons that I'll take with me, especially if I'm recovered. I think I touched on this earlier. I have learned to not care what anyone else thinks at all. And I think that's so important to, just listen to yourself, and other people aren't really thinking of you. Like they're not judging you as much as you think. So I think that's been such an important lesson. And I've also very much realized how much I take for granted, or how much I took for granted before I got sick. So that is something that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. And I've definitely become more empathetic in general, just because I know that no one can see how much I'm suffering at the time or what I've been going through. So I never want to like belittle anyone for how they're acting or how they appear, because we have no idea what's going on in anyone's life. So I've noticed that change in myself. And it's also definitely affected my relationships, because I've lost touch with a lot of people, or honestly just lost respect for a lot of people due to the way that they've kind of handled this whole situation. And I've kind of come to terms with that's a blessing in the long run because I have wonderful friends and my family is so supportive. And so that's all I really need. And I, the people that, you know, I might not be as close with anymore, that's probably a good thing. Sadly, it had to come out from this situation, but it probably would have happened either way. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely taken a lot and robbed you of a lot, which is completely unfair. You know, all those experiences you listed that you should be having at your age, you should get to have those. And you're not even listing massive things like just go to yoga or
yeah.
go on a holiday with your friends. But it's interesting hearing you talk because you say a lot of the things that I say about my experience that happened to me at 30 and they're happening to you now. You know, you say how much you've grown from 18 to 21, and at 21, most of us are still a mess. You
Yeah.
know, we are very immature. We have no clue how to take care of ourselves. We just are not great at relationships. We don't treat people as well as we should be treating them. We don't have very much empathy. So, you know, I certainly would never want to say that this is, of course, not a good thing. This is a horrible thing that's happened, you know, end of sentence. That being said, it's, you know, it seems to have launched you just so far ahead in life in so many ways, you know, into such a fantastic, incredible person at the age of 21, which is just amazing. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it when we're sick, and especially for you, it's been your, you know, like you said, your whole adult life, but you're making progress. And, you know, I have to believe that you'll get past this. And then you have your whole life ahead of you still. So, you know, to go on holidays and do yoga. And so I'm excited to see you keep going on this journey and get all these things back and to know that there's still so much to come.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's kind of how I've gotten through it to this point is knowing that I'm still young and 3 years or however many years it takes me to be better is not that long in the grand scheme of things and all the things that I want to do, minus a few will still be there. So
One of the reasons I was really excited to talk to you today is because you do have a unique perspective. A lot of us get sick older in life, you know, because this hit you so young. And there are so many people, unfortunately, that are getting sick at your age or even younger. So since you've already been going through this for a few years, what advice would you have for them or for yourself if you could go back to when you first got sick? What would you say?
So the first one is find reasons to believe in recovery. So I've always believed that I would recover and in the concept of recovering from CFS, but in the worst times, it's really hard to remember that. Like I've always believed it in my heart, but not so much like every second of every day. So I think like just find like even these videos or recovery stories or why you want to recover, just find reasons that give you hope and that will get you through the worst times and it will get better. The next one, I've already preached this, but don't worry what anyone else thinks of you, whether that be doctors or your family or, you know, your friends. That doesn't matter. Your health is your main priority and you can deal with everything else, you know, once you have your health in your own hands. And also not to say don't go to the doctor. There's great things that come from my interactions with doctors, but just do your own research and doctors will help you, but they're probably not the entire answer to this illness. Sadly, hopefully someday they are. But, and then the last one I would say is just find reasons to be grateful for what you still have because you're still alive, even though it's so horrible and I can't even put into words on this video, you know, the worst days. But every morning I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for that happened in the past day. So I try to be specific, but sometimes that's just like having a comfy bed or something like that. But so find reasons to be grateful, even though everything is really hard.
Wow, I think you are just amazing. I think this is incredible. I am so grateful that you're sharing this and you are wise, well beyond your years. I think this is going to mean a lot to a lot of people. And you've learned so much that takes so many of us so much longer. I think it's an important point you made too about the doctors. I think so many of us are socialized or conditioned to think of them as the authority. You know, when we get sick, we go to them and they're going to tell us what to do. And it creates a whole host of problems for us, I think, with this illness because I mean, one, they don't always believe us. So when we're looking at them as the authority, it can be crushing. You know, my family doctor didn't believe me when I got sick, and it was really, really heartbreaking for me and just added such another layer of stress. But then even when I did find a really good doctor, I followed everything he did to the letter. Everything. 1000%. Like I did not think for myself for even a moment. And it took me a long time to realize that, yeah, he had things to offer, but he wasn't going to be the whole answer. So thank you, I guess is what I'm trying to say for sharing all of that. I think it's really well put and all really important stuff for people to know.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to share what I've learned and hope that it can help some people, especially because I know I didn't know anyone that was my age with CFS when I first got diagnosed. So, you know, there are people out there. I found them, but it's really hard to find those people.
Yeah, it really helps to know that you're not alone in your struggles, doesn't it? Of course, we don't want anyone else to be struggling, but there's just something so valuable about being able to connect with someone that just gets it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you for doing this today. I think a lot of people will really appreciate what you've had to say and everything that you shared, and a lot of it will resonate. And if people want to find you, talk to you more, how can they find you?
I have an Instagram page called Wellness by Annie with 2 E's in the Annie.
Okay.
So that's kind of all the social media or contact that I have right now, but feel free to DM me or email me if you want to talk about anything to do with CFS or, you know, healing or my age or anything. So
Okay.
I'd say just follow me on Instagram.
Great, thank you. And I'll put all of this in the video description as well so people can find it if they want to reach out to you. And as always, for those of you watching, we always really appreciate hearing your thoughts and your comments and your experiences with all this. So thank you for all the comments that all of you have been leaving in all of these videos and all of these CFS ME stories so far. So we'd love to hear what you think. You know, if you have any questions for Annie or myself, please leave them there, or any thoughts or insights about anything that we've talked about. And if you've enjoyed this video, if you think it was helpful, you know, please share it. Let's pool our resources and work together and get as much as we can out there for people to use and have for their own ME CFS recovery journeys. So you can share this on Facebook, you can just share the link, or you can share it on Instagram, take a screenshot, and you can tag myself and Annie if you like, and then just let us know what you thought. And yes, if we're not already friends on social media, come find us. You know, come find Annie, come find myself, say hello. We'd love to hear a bit about your story. And also you can see a bit of the behind the scenes stuff of when I'm, you know, shooting videos and just both of our everyday life. So we'd love for you to come find us there and say hi. Thank you, Annie, again, so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone who's watching, and thank you for all of the support and things like, you know, sharing the videos and, you know, commenting and subscribing. We really appreciate the support that you're giving us for what we're trying to do here. And I've got more interviews coming up as well, which is really exciting. Some people with some different and unique experiences with this illness, and some more people who have fully recovered. So if you haven't already subscribed, it's a good time to do it. And don't forget to ring that gray bell if you want to get notifications so you'll know when the videos come out. So that's all for today. Thank you again, Annie. Thank you everyone who is watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.